Okay. So everyone can see the screen pretty well?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right. So this will be this will just set the frame for what we're going to do, guys. So here's the most important part of what we're going to do in 3 days. The whole goal with this training is to completely detach from doing therapy or even being a therapist. Now, for those who are ACH, I talk a lot about detaching from the outcome, detaching from doing anything, and allowing the naturalness of unconscious moments to show themselves. So I want to take it one big step forward and detach from even doing therapy anymore, or even being a therapist. And instead make this communication style the way you talk, act, feel, and express ideas all the time. Anytime words come out of your mouth, I want them to influence that person listening to them in a very positive way. Thus, you break free from switching from human being to therapist, which we know alerts your client's defenses that you've started. So I'll get, when I come back on the screen, guys, we'll have a chat about this. Bear this in mind. If you ever find yourself switching from human being to therapist, you're already in the wrong place. Even if it's just minute things, like a different body posture, different tonality. As soon as you switch something very, very small, remember, you have got an unconscious mind sitting in front of you that your client, that's inside the mind of your client, that is picking up on all these intangible things that we know summarize 80% of our communication. So instead of switching from a human being to a therapist, instead just make this the way that you act, think, and talk all the time, so you never have to switch again, ever. Now, I appreciate learning ACH for the first time. The hardest part to get good with ACH is learning to be okay about not getting it. That's what I was talking about before. And also okay with not knowing what's going to happen with your clients. So what if we don't concentrate on the hypnosis part in these 3 days and just concentrate on the conversation part? No longer are we going to be therapists. We're going to be influencers. Because you've got to realize, let's say 5% of your life is going to be sitting, just in the context of your career, is going to be sitting in front of your clients. The rest of the time, your clients aren't sitting in front of you. And there's a whole lot of wasted opportunity there to not be able to influence every single person you speak to. So what if we concentrate on the hypnosis part and concentrate on the conversation part? That's what we're going to go. We make our communication hypnotic and smooth with nothing obviously hypnotic about it. And this was the genius of Erickson. People would come up and talk to Milton Erickson, have no idea what he was saying or what he was doing, then an hour later wake up thinking, what the fuck just happened? When did he switch? What did he do? What did he say? That's where we're going. So here's what I want you to remember, guys. Don't try and be good. Don't try and be right. Don't try and be wrong. Don't be anything. Just show up with your clients, but also people you speak to, and just notice what happens. Now, I appreciate as well, it's easier said than done. This took me the longest time to understand. My mentor told me this, and he would tell me over and over. He just said, stop, just show up. Just notice what happens. And I'm thinking, what do you mean notice what happens? What am I noticing? What am I looking for? As soon as I was looking for something particular, I've already screwed it up. I can remember watching him and thinking, I don't even know when he started. Like, I have no idea. This client's halfway through a breakthrough. When did he start? And that was definitely an influence of Erickson. And this is what Erickson, again, was famous for. And again, anytime you alert your clients that you're changing body position from the human being to the therapist, their defense is already going to go up. So just be your normal self and listen. And I've underlined and bolded the word listen. That's going to be a main theme through this 3 days, because it's something we as human beings, me included, are very poor at doing, which is really listening. Because anytime we're in a conversation, we spend so long in our head trying to figure out, what am I going to say next? We miss out on all the wonderful things that are being told to us. So when you stop trying to do everything else to try and impress your clients by how good a therapist you are, when you stop trying to do all those things, you will impress them and your breakthroughs will happen in minutes. But as soon as sometimes your ego, I'm just as guilty as everybody else, your ego hits in, you're now trying to do something. And it's all these subtle nuances that can turn what could be a 5-minute breakthrough into an hour-long session. Now, I appreciate as well, an hour is not very long for a breakthrough, but I'm sure you guys want these things to happen quicker. So here's a special note. Although we're looking at MACH in the context of influence, we're going to just wrap up communication, therapy, whatever you guys want to call it, coaching. We're going to use the word influence. Communication, sales, strategy calls, and even regular conversations. Everything I teach fits perfectly into therapy and will also make the ACH training seem like training wheels. I promise you that. So here's the one thing a lot of trainers don't understand is when you want someone to get good at something, you can't keep it in the same context. If you want to get good at riding a bike, you can't just ride the bike over and over on a flat surface and expect to get better at riding a bike. You've got to go on the hills, you've got to go on dirt, you've got to go on gravel, you've got to, go on the jumps, you've got to tip your bike over, get back up, you've got to figure out what to do. It's the same thing here. So you may notice it's not going to be anything like ACH training. We're not going to be doing the therapy, but at the same time, we are going to be doing therapy, but it's going to be invisible. Okay. So I want everybody to allow time to really absorb, understand, and integrate these new strategies and start to become more conscious of yourself during every single conversation from this point forward. Okay. So let's move on to the next slide. So here's a little advice, guys, when it comes to after the training. And these are little practice tips, which I think really help as well, is when you guys go ahead and practice this stuff after the 3 days of course, when you guys are teaming up, I highly recommend now starting to team up, if you can, with 3 people. And there's a reason for this. There's 3 positions that you want to adopt and circle through as a participant. You want to practice being the client. You want to practice being the therapist, but you also want to practice being the observer. So in 3s. And as a matter of fact, the observer becomes the most important because it's where you can see what is happening and not react to it with judgment. And there's another theme. Judgment is going to be another theme throughout this training as well. Thus, this is the therapist you want to become. So 3 other ways to further enhance your practice skills, guys, and like I said, you'll have the notes, you'll be able to look back on these, is when you guys are practicing with each other, go back to the mechanics, go back to real mechanical stuff and play around with these different contexts. Number 1, do nothing but ask questions and just notice what happens. So ask your client, what's the problem? They're going to tell you, then ask them a what question, a who question, a why question. Don't try and figure out which context fits the what, the how, the who. Don't try and fit that. Just throw questions out there and notice what happens. You could also try position number 3, is to concentrate purposefully and look for one result. Go looking for a very specific unconscious moment. So you might be practicing with, I don't know, Sarah, and you're chatting to Sarah. She's the client, you're the therapist, and you might be looking for unconscious moments of confusion. Go looking for those things. Try and steer the conversation towards confusion. When you're done working with Sarah, find somebody else and then go looking for another type of unconscious moment. The reason you want to do this is because you want to train yourself to see how small and how big those unconscious moments can be. Okay, or you can try position number 3. Try anything you can think of, including all your old traditional trainings, and use everything you've learned and see what happens. Just throw everything at your client. See what happens. Does it make it harder? Does it make it easier? Does it make the session longer? You want to set yourself in different contexts because then it breaks you, it detaches you and breaks you free of just having it one way. That's how you sort of freestyle this stuff. So here's another important note, ACH understanding. We know, and this is my observation as well, therapy is only about creating choices for your clients. It's not about giving them a breakthrough. That's not your job. It's not about having them quit smoking or lose weight or overcome anxiety. That's not your job. So when I'm going into a session or was going into a session, it means that the only problem I'm solving is their inability to not have choice. That takes all the pressure off me. That's all I'm doing. So the context of their problem doesn't matter. It doesn't make me scared, doesn't make me anxious, like, oh my God, this is a massive problem. because I'm not looking at problems that way. All I'm looking at is this person doesn't have choice. I'm just going to give them choice. And it's almost like you can go into a session and just delete anything they say about their problem, because as soon as you start absorbing what their problem is, you start putting pressure on yourself and you start categorizing it. And that's a very dangerous place. So it doesn't matter in the context of the problem, how big, how small it is, it doesn't matter, because I'm just giving my client choice back. So this takes the pressure off me, and I'm never looking for an outcome. I'm only looking for unconscious moments. That's it. Because I know once I find the unconscious moment, it means that the solution is right there as well. But as soon as I go looking for the solution, we know we put pressure on ourselves. But if I just go collecting unconscious moments, if you imagine like you go into a session with like a little duffel bag and you want to collect as many unconscious moments as possible, that's all you're doing. And then when you got enough in the duffel bag, you give the duffel bag to your client and they have the breakthrough. So go collecting unconscious moments instead of breakthroughs. Okay. So here's a diagram of what we're going to do. Up the top was ACH. Okay. And I'll just run through this very quickly just to remind everybody. Left-hand side up the top, we've got the problem. And we know that the problem is defined by this orange circle around, which we call knots. They're the knots that keep the problem in the same place. So when a client tries to solve their problem, they're solving it from inside the context of the problem. They keep hitting this wall because the knots are tied so tight. We know that's the unconscious thing. We know the solutions exist outside of the problem itself. And we know that there's some sort of distance between them, where they are now, the problem, and the solution. And sometimes it takes a minute for them to get the breakthrough, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 3 sessions, a whole year. There's a distance and time. And we know with the ACH training, what we've done is we've broken through those knots, turn them from orange to green, if you will. We've opened up the problem circle and allowed these choices to fill up the problem. Now they have choice. It's still confined by the problem because that's really who the client is. They're defined by themselves. But now they have choice and they can pick and choose any solution, any outcome, any example of the solution they like. It's up to them. We're just giving them the choice. So that's ACH. You guys should be pretty familiar with that. What we're going to be doing through Masters is this right here. We're going to be changing the context of looking at this thing we call influence, which then when you go back to ACH makes this thing so much easier. So how's the timeline going to look? What we're going to look at over the next 3 days. Let's look at something called motivation. It takes a lot of motivation for somebody to admit that they've got a problem, a lot more motivation for someone to reach out for help, a lot more motivation for someone to see you as an expert, hence your content and stuff like that, more motivation to book in a call. And probably the biggest part of the motivation is from them saying, yes, I'm done with my problem. I'm now ready to change. So what I want to do is show you guys a way to speed up this motivation, to influence your clients in such a way where it becomes a no-brainer for them to want to work with you. And in doing that, here's the cool part. We talked about MOS a lot. You actually start to change the nature of their problem and motivate them at the same time. So why would we want to do that? It means by the time they come into the session, they're half done, 3/4 done. They just need that little bit of nudge over the side and they've had a complete breakthrough. So your clients aren't coming in anymore from step one, like, yes, I have a problem, I need to be healed. By the time you do the strategy call and influence them in such a way, by the time they come into your office, they've already changed 3/4 of the way there. That's where we're going. But it's not just with paid clients. This is going to be the way that you interact with everybody from this point forward. So the very act of using what I'm going to be teaching guys over 3 days is going to motivate people, influence people, where conversations you have with strategy calls, people you talk to on the street, friends and family, the way they start to feel about themselves and life and happiness and success and all that start to change in a very positive way. So in the short term, like I said, by the time a client comes in to see you, these solutions, which were a little bit further away before based on the ACH training, are so close. You end up doing like an Erickson session where clients are walking to his office and they'd say, I want to quit smoking. And he'd say, okay, do it. See you later. Because he'd done all of this beforehand. All the heavy lifting was done before his client came in. That's where we're going. So we know with the ACH training, we start with our client in the middle here. They've got a pain. We dig into the pain. It's almost like, to use a metaphor, we go backwards into the pain to find the solution. That's ACH training. What we're going to do is this part right here, from decision and motivation to booking a strategy call, all the way through to showing up in your office, all the way through to the solution. So we're going to be working backwards to get the problem out, but we're also going to be working forward to motivate these people where they cannot stop thinking about the session, where they start talking to everybody else about how good you made them feel on the strategy call. But also, I realize we're not going to overdo it where we, do the therapy on the strategy call. We're going to get them right on the cusp where they're feeling so goddamn good, but they know they need that little extra nudge, and you're going to be that nudge. And they're going to pay a lot of money for it. Okay. So if you realize, well, how can we put this together in more social context with the strategy call? I realized this on the strategy calls. Client talks to you on the phone, guys. We ask them the normal strategy call script, which will still make you guys a ton of money, but obviously we want to make it easier for you. They're going to tell you about their problem. They're going to tell you why they're stuck. They're going to tell you maybe they don't believe in hypnosis. They're always going to be this way. They're presenting to you their reality of the problem. And sometimes it's enough just to follow the script and get enough of influence out of that where they come in, they book you in, you become their therapist, and they have their breakthrough. What I want to start to do is, by the end of the strategy call, this is so broken down that they start to see, that's the key word here, they start to see that there's choice, but they don't know how to collect that choice. And they're going to hire you so you can get that choice for them. Hopefully this is all, you can start to see this all coming around. So if you're ever having objections, it's this on the strategy call. I want to have this, where price, time, sessions no longer matter to your clients anymore. They just are so fixated on the end result. That's all they think about. Okay. So this is what I mean. We're going to be combining everything you do. And please, I don't say this as a joke. Please use this in a positive way. Don't do this to deceive people. Don't do this to get one up on people. Please don't use these strategies to try and sell your product if you're not good at what you do. Because what I want to show you guys is how to combine this influence and motivation strategies and therapy at the same time. So they're interchangeable. People you speak to, maybe family members, friends, strangers, are so influenced and taken by what you're talking about and how you listen to them and what things that you say that they can't get you out of their head. And at the same time, you start to change their life with just regular conversation. So every conversation, natural or therapeutic, you have from now on will become motivational and healing at the same time. Now, please expand your context there outside of therapy. Remember, therapy is maybe 5% of your whole career. Friends, family, loved ones, children, anybody you speak to. For those that have, it's been quite funny. A lot of you guys have been asking me, you guys want to go on stage, you want to sell your products on stage, you want to host seminars, you want to do the sort of stuff that I'm doing. This is the perfect place to use it. You never want to switch this stuff off. As soon as you switch it off, you go from being human being to therapist, you will start to alert people. So over time, you'll control this thing that we're going to create in such a way that clients will become so motivated to hire you that they won't realize that the therapy's actually begun. We're going to MOS their MOS. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We'll get some feedback. Just let me